Ang isang misconception, una ay ang distance learning ay sa pamamagitan lamang ng online platform. Misconception yan dahil hindi lahat ng forma ng pagbibigay, paghatid ng pag-aaral in a distance learning ay through online. Meron din tayong printed modules at meron ding offline at maaari din gamitin ang educational TV, gayon din ang radyo. Isa pang misconception ay kailangan ng mga bata ng gadgets at kailangan bumili yung mga magulang ng mga gadgets na ito at kailangan ng connectivity. Misconception yan na pagka binuksan yung ating pag-aaral, itong ating school year, ay lahat ng mga bata ay pupunta physically sa mga paaralan. At alam natin na yan ay hindi maaring gawin sa kasalukuyan dahil dun sa naging pronouncement ng Pangulo ay at this time ay ang ating panuntunan ay magiging purely distance learning options. Pero maaari pa rin yan tawaging blended learning dahil nabanggit ko, iba-iba ng forma yan. May online, may digital offline, may printed modules na ginagamit at may television and radio. At hindi naman kailangang isang klase lamang ng distance learning ang ating gamitin for the delivery of instruction. Pero kung meron silang mga gadgets na ganyan, ay ima-maximize yan ng ating mga guro. At kaya nga meron tayong naging survey ay para malaman natin yung mga kailangan ng mga pag-aaral natin para ma-contextualize at saka maiakma yung paghahatid ng pag-aaral sa kanilang tahanan.
Online, hindi tayo magiging handa, no? Dahil for practical reasons, only less than 40% of our population have some access to internet. At alam naman natin sa rural areas, halos less than 20% ang may access sa internet. So even though we will strive to deliver through online, but realistically, ang magiging modality dito ay through the self-learning modules. And if the self-learning modules is designed properly, may fighting chance yung bata na matuto. We have to remember we're giving our children a fighting chance to learn. In this pandemic, malaking challenge talagang hinaharap ng lahat, even yung mga nagtuturo at yung mga nag-aaral. But hindi tayo pwedeng tumigil sa pagtuturo dahil maraming iwanan, maraming tayong mga kabataan na maiiwanan. Yung divide between the rich and poor, lalaki at lalaki yan. So, itong distance learning through self-learning module is really to give our children a fighting chance not to be left behind.
and welcome to another episode of Online Crashtalkan, brought to you by Pinas Forward. Para sa mga netizens na ngayon lang natin nakasama, ang Pinas Forward ay isang nation-building movement. At kung may online trash talkan at rambulan, ang online crash talkan naman ay isang safe space para sabay-sabay natin pag-usapan ng mga halagang issues na kinakaharap natin bilang isang DigiNation. Before I proceed, I would just like to invite everyone to join in on the conversation by posting your comments and questions in the comment section below. Alright, let's proceed to our topic for today. Para mas maintindihan natin ang pag-uusapan natin sa araw na ito, let's all watch this.
The World Health Organization says the Philippines has the fastest rise in COVID-19 cases among other Asian countries.
Tumipas sa mahigit 57,000 ang COVID-19 cases sa bansa.
Danger zone na tayo. We have to stop. Ang health worker namin can no longer take further expansion.
And as the country records more infections, the government names a new anti-COVID-19 czar or 4 new czars to lead the fight against the coronavirus.
Ang pinakamahirap sa contact tracing kung marami ng kaso. It will be a challenge, but we can do it. We can do it.
I was given the task of monitoring and tracking the hospitals in the NCR at saka yung sa Cebu kasi ito yung mga epicenters ngayon ng pagdami ng mga critically severe and moderate patients na napapa-admit.
Our tests have drastically increased since April and May. In April, we had roughly only about 100,000 tests nationwide conducted as of April. Now we are at 600 and I think we're already at 650 plus thousand tests.
Importante po na ma-isolate po yung mga either naging COVID positive or yung mga may simptomas. At asahan nyo po na walang tigil po ang aming pagtatayo ng quarantine facilities para makontrol po natin ang pagkalat ng COVID-19.
It is quite challenging to answer the questions on how do we end it and when do we end it. And I'd like to believe that the government cannot do it alone.
Ayan, good evening sa inyong lahat. Kumusta ka, James? Oops, nakamute ka ata, James. Teka na, pa-mute na iyong microphone. Ayan!
It's been a while. It's been a while.
Ayan kasi, ang ganda-ganda ng microphone mo eh.
Alam mo kasi na-miss ko yung online Crashtalkan dahil 2 weeks tayong wala, di ba? Pero ang dami ring nakamiss dahil may mga nakikita pa akong comments dito about sa tanungan about sa sa education, online education.
Eskwela, oo.
Mukhang nabigyan sila sa last topic.
Oo nga eh. Well, anyway, pwede naman i-continue ang conversation na yan sa ating Facebook community, no? Dahil may Facebook community na ang online Crashtalkan. Pero mamaya na natin pag-usapan yan, tawagin na natin ang ating mga guests dahil nandito na sila backstage. Actually, galing sila sa meeting ngayon, no? So we really are very thankful for having them here tonight. First up, James.
Kitang-kita mo naman sobrang busy nito. The President and CEO of Bases Conversion and Development Authority and the Deputy Chief Implementer for Pandemic Response, our Testing Czar, Secretary Vince Dizon.
Good evening po, sir.
Good evening, Jessica. Good evening, James.
Good evening, sir.
All right. Our next guest is from the Department of Health. He's our treatment czar. Ayan. Galing Davao, taga Davao City po pala ito, from my hometown. Please welcome Yusek Leopoldo Vega.
Good evening, Jessica. Good evening, James. Good evening, Sec Vince. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you again.
It's been a whole day affair.
Sana hindi pa po kayo nagsasawaan sa isa't isa, no?
Alas 8 pa lang ng umaga, magkasama na kami ni Yusek.
Oh my goodness.
Si Sec Vince, idol ko yan.
All right. Si Mayor Magalong, no, susubukan po niyang humabol ngayong gabi. Alam mo na po natin. Kita-kita naman po natin, sobrang busy po ng ating mga COVID-19 czars ngayon. So, we hope that Mayor Magalong can join us later on. We also invited Secretary Mark Villar, our isolation czar, but we weren't able to get a response. Alam naman po natin yung sitwasyon niya ngayon health-wise, and we wish him a speedy recovery. All right, on with the show. Pero before we ask our first question, I would just like to give a very, very warm shout out to my watch party. If our guests can join me. Ayan sila! Hello! Hi, everybody!
May studio audience
Say
tayo.
hi! Yes, may live studio audience tayo, no?
Dami.
Yan, from all over yan. That is from Baguio, Ilocos Sur, Davao, Metro Manila. Ayan. Thank you so much for joining us. And sa lahat ng nagwa-watch party ngayon, thank you so much for joining us this evening. All right. So let's start our discussion, Vince. Vince, sorry,
Yes.
James.
Wow, first name basis ka na kay Secretary Vince, ha?
Sorry, hindi ko alam why it just comes out so naturally. Anyway.
Vince lang.
Pero kasi batang-bata ni Secretary Vince, no? Tapos siya na yung
parang tropa lang.
First question ko, Secretary Vince, ano po ba yung ibig sabihin ng czar?
Basically, ano lang naman yan, no? Parang ano lang, no? Common term lang para ipakita sa mga kababayan natin na binibigyan ng malaking importance ng gobyerno yung mga kailangan gawin para talagang magabanan natin ng maigi itong napakalaking challenge na hinaharap nating lahat. So it just gives importance to the four things that that the government needs to really take very seriously, yung tracing, kay Mayor Benji, who has really done wonders in Baguio. I'm sure yung mga online watchers natin ngayon na galing Baguio, na-appreciate nila yung talagang napakagandang ginawa ni Mayor Benji sa Baguio. Yung treatment sa ating kaibigan na si Yusek Bong Vega, and bagong-bago pa lang siya sa DOH as Yusek, pero alam nyo, napakatagal na niyang pinapatakbo ang Southern Philippines Medical Center sa Davao. And I think it is the best hospital, not just in Mindanao, but it is one of the best hospitals in the entire country. No? If I'm not mistaken, it's, I think, one of the, if not the biggest public hospital in the country today. No? And syempre, yung isolation, importante yan. No? Kailangan yung mga positibo nating mga kababayan, kailangan talaga ma-isolate sila para hindi nila mahawaan yung mga mahal nila sa buhay. And finally, yung testing, which is also very, very important. So, yun lang siguro, no? Ang reason kung bakit tinawag na czar yung mga nag-head ng apat na bagay na to.
And then mapunta na po tayo doon sa testing, Secretary Vince. Ano na po ba yung current testing capacity natin? Okay, so ngayon, nung February, bumalik tayo ng Feb, no? Nung nagsimula itong malaking hamon natin sa COVID-19. Ang laboratory natin to test with RT-PCR, ito yung pagte-test using sinaswab yung yung ating mga kababayan, ay iisa lang, no? Yung RITM lang nung February. Naging 5 ito nung March. Ngayon, 88 na as of July 19. 88 labs na tayo, the entire country. And yung ating capacity to test out of those 88 ay umaabot na ng mahigit 60,000 per day. And dahil doon, yung ating actual na ginagawang mga test, napakarami na rin. No? Dati nung March, mga nasa 500 per day lang tayo na tinetest. Ngayon, nasa almost 30,000 na tayo. Nag-hit tayo ng 28,000 per day. No, so halos doble na 'yon ng per day testing ng countries like South Korea, no? It took us a long time to get there. It took us several months, but finally we're there. No, we're there at that level. So kailangan lang tuloy-tuloy pa. And nag-hit tayo ng milestone last week. We hit the 1 million testing mark last week. And as of today, nasa more than 1.2 million tests na tayo na nagagawa. No? Nung March, again, ang total test lang natin nung Marso, I think was only less than 20,000. So, ngayon, nasa mahigit 1 million na. So, kulang pa rin. 10 million ang ating target. Kailangan pang tuloy-tuloy pa. Mas maging agresibo pa tayo. And also, Secretary, ano po ba yung testing protocols natin? And meron po ba tayong priority sa pagtetest?
Oo. Alam mo, magandang tanong yan, James, no? Nung una, and si Yusek Bong can attest to this, no? Kasi pinagdaanan niya to nung bandang mga February, March, April. Nung panahon kasi na yon, nakakaunti pa yung laboratorio natin at wala tayong capacity na mag-test. Ang ating protocol, ang tinetest lang talaga natin yung mga may symptom. In fact, hindi pa lahat ng may symptom tinetest natin. No? Bigyan kita ng kwento. No? Halimbawa ako, nung March, na-expose ako sa isang positive patient sa isang meeting. So, na-contact trace ako. Pumunta ako sa ospital, no, dito sa Medical City sa Clark. At nagpunta ako sa ER, tinanong ko, sinabi ko sa kanila na meron akong nakakontak, chinek nila yung temperature ko, wala naman akong lagnat, wala akong ubo, wala akong sipon. So, tinanong ko sa kanila, no, at that time, kailangan ba akong magpa-test? Ang sabi sa akin ay hindi po. Hindi kayo kailangan magpa-test, basta bantayan nyo lang ho. Kung kayo'y magka-symptoms, then bumalik ho kayo. No? So, and the reason for that is kakaunti pa yung test natin. And talagang naka-reserve ito dun sa mga pinaka-nangangailangan ng test. No? Pero ngayon, iba na. Iba na ang usapan ngayon. No? Dahil marami na tayong labs, malaki na ang capacity natin to test. So ngayon, in-expand na rin natin yung mga dapat i-test. No? So hindi na lang yung may mga symptom, pati yung mga walang symptom, lalong-lalo na kung ikaw ay madalas na may contact sa mga iba nating mga kababayan, halimbawa, no, yung ating mga police, yung ating mga security guards, yung ating mga barangay tanod, yung ating mga cashier sa supermarket, mga salespersons natin, lahat sila ngayon ay libre na ang kanilang test dahil considered sila as frontliners. Pero kahit sino ngayon, kahit na hindi ka covered nung DOH protocol, pwede ka nang mag-test. Yun na nga, kailangan mo magbayad at hindi ka libre under PhilHealth.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you, Secretary Vince.
Thank you, Secretary Vince. Ngayon naman po sa USEC Vega, meron po akong katanungan po sa inyo. Meron po kasi kaming kinonduct na survey, no, very hindi po siya, wala po siyang scientific basis, pero meron po kaming audience na sumagot po ng survey questions. And one of them is kung naniniwala ba na may sapat na kapasidad ang ating mga ospital. Papakita ko lang po yung resulta nung ating survey na ito. Ayan, lalabas po sa ating screen. So naniniwala po ba, tinanong namin kung naniniwala ba sila na sapat ang kapasidad ng mga ospital para sa mga biktima ng COVID. 58% answered hindi. 22 ay oo at 20% ang walang opinion. This is out of 409 respondents po, USEC. So ano pong comment natin dito, and maybe we can answer them kung ano na po ba yung ating capacity ngayon.
Tama-tama yung tanong, Cheska, no? Kasi when the start of COVID, it was something very new to the hospital facility. Alam nyo, we didn't know about the virus and how infectious it is mga January, February. So when we started, mga hospitals started off to admit COVID patients, they had to contract ang mga beds nila into to make sure na makakapasok yung mga COVID clients nila. So it took time before they had to do mga re-engineering, making sure na yung mga non-COVID at COVID hindi magkahawaan, re-engineering na yung mga frontliners natin, maganda naman yung pag-serve nila sa intensive care units at saka sa operating rooms na kailangan sila may sapat na PPE at saka yung engineering, ang re-engineering nito, meaning to say yung mga entrance and exit, yung doffing at saka donning area, matagal ito na prepare and even putting in the negative pressure. So at the first tranche talaga ng dating ng COVID, all facilities were caught in a surprise. Pero later on, as we move towards understanding about what COVID really is and how infectious it is, it became necessary ngayon sa lahat ng mga hospitals na to make sure that they have the necessary PPEs, they have to make sure that they have the necessary upgrades in terms of the hospitals, make sure that there are enough separation between COVID and non-COVID. Ito siguro yung opinion ng iba na because totoo naman talaga na nobody was prepared for COVID. But right now, since dahan-dahan namin naiintindihan at dahan-dahan namin nakikita kung paano namin mag-respond in terms of expansion, mukhang ano naman, I think the hospitals are now ready to make sure that they know what to do in making sure that COVID and non-COVID patients are attended to. Yun, Jessica, ang sagot ko.
Okay, thank you po, Yusek. Yes,
Yusek.
Vince.
Ano po ba yung kayo naman po ang treatment czar, 'di ba, Yusek Vega?
Yes.
Can you briefly explain to us the duties and responsibilities of being a treatment czar?
Actually, itong treatment czar nasa concept ng one hospital command. Kasi ang treatment kasi it involves hospitals, it involves treatment temporary treatment facilities. Ito yung mga isolation and quarantine facilities. Now, pag sinabi mo kasi treatment, it means na the hospital facilities must be able to respond to the any surge or any increase in admissions in a hospital. Ito yung ano namin. We're trying to form a one hospital command to make sure na ma-coordinated very well ang mga public at saka private, no? Magkakaroon silang very good communication, and we will make use of data and real-time data on a dashboard to see na kung saan yung mga hospitals with capacity to say admit another intensive care unit patient, o saan naman pwedeng hospital na pwede i-transfer yung mga moderate. So it has to work in a system or in a network, kasi pag ang hospital independently moving, walang alam kung saan ita-transfer, hindi coordinated ang care, nakagulo, at usually ito yung nag-queue up sa emergency room. So in that way, yung concept of treatment really is clinical care. Clinical care na at least we will be able to respond to our COVID clients or patients.
Yes, nagkaroon nga po ng balita nakaraan na nasa danger zone na raw po yung mga capacity ng hospitals natin. Meron po tayong ginawang survey dito. Ang tanong po natin dito is, naniniwala ka ba na may sapat pang kapasidad ang ating mga ospital para sa mga biktima ng COVID-19? So, Jess, pwede ba nating maipakita yung survey result na yon? So, ang
There you
result
go.
is naniniwala pa sila na meron pang sapat, 62%, and then 37% is hindi, and yung lagi naman meron pong wala talagang pakialam, so yun po yung 1%. So doon po sa 1,409 na yun, yun po ang ating respondents. So totoo po ba ito, Yusek? Madami pa po ba tayo, hindi pa po ba talaga puno ang ating hospital capacity?
Alam mo ngayon, nagbubukas na tayo ng economy. And dahan-dahan natin from ECQ, nag-GCQ na tayo, MGCQ. Makikita mo may movement talaga ang tao. And pag may movement ng tao, mas mabilis ang movement ng virus. Kasi in fact, highly infectious virus to eh. Kaya nga sinasabi namin that there has to be a minimum health standard when you are away from your home, no? Talagang you wear mask, hygiene, and of course social distancing. Kasi pag hindi natin ginawa yon, at nakikita naman natin sa data ngayon, nag-i-increase talaga ang positive cases. That's true because there is more freedom in movement, at saka, you know, sometimes hindi conscious yung tao in terms of their minimum health standards. Pag tumaas naman yung positive na mga pasyente, although 90% naman yan mild, tapos ang iba niyan mga less than mga 8% siguro these are mga moderate cases that we have. Yung severe naman, yun ang inaalagaan namin kasi binabantayan, no? Kasi yung mga although 8%, 0.8 lang yan or 0.7 or 0.4, nag-i-increase lang yan correspondingly pag tumataas din ang kaso. And this is very critical. Ito na yon, kasi pag tumaas ang number of cases, lalo na sa intensive or yung mga severe cases, kukunti lang naman talaga ang ICU dito sa Manila. It's close to about 500 beds for ICU. Very limited kasi ang ICU space sa hospital. No? Siguro isang hospital will only have mga 20 ICUs kasi malaki ang resources and not only human but capital resources ang kailangan mo to build up an ICU. So kukunti lang talaga. So not only that, ibang hospitals, they have to make sure na yung non-COVID patients nila have to be taken care of kasi
Yes.
you know, these are as equally important as to the COVID patients. So yun yung tinutugunan namin ngayon on how best na if ever there is a scenario wherein there's a big surge, then the hospitals can take care of the moderate and severe cases and respond to it na hindi naman ma-overwhelm. Kasi ito yung masamang mangyari pag na-overwhelm ang hospital, and it would be very hard to take care of these very sick and critical patients.
Okay, thank you, Yusek. I'm glad you mentioned yung different treatments for the iba-ibang cases, no? Kasi meron po akong kaibigan actually who was positive of COVID, tapos pero mild lang yung symptoms niya. So he was not advised to be admitted in the hospitals. In fact, he could not find the hospital kahit private who would take him in. Unfortunately, the case for that friend of mine is hindi siya taga Metro Manila pero nasa Metro Manila siya. So wala siyang matitirhan, hindi na siya pwedeng pumasok sa dorm niya. And then when we were trying to find a way for him to find a place to stay, parang pinagpasa-pasa po siya, unfortunately, no? And then only to find out after one day of coordination na the next day, sinabihan siya na hindi na siya pwedeng umalis dun sa quarantine facility. So, my question, I guess, from that anecdote is, paano po natin ine-ensure yung coordination ng ating mga offices para effectively ma-implement yung ating guidelines? Secretary Vince, please feel free to also chime in, no? Sige po.
Okay, Vince, you want to say something, yeah, right?
No, Yusek Bong, kayo po muna, and then I'll
Right. Yeah, and let us make it very clear, no? Lalo na ngayon na the hospital beds are very critical. Kasi nakikita nyo, although mataas nga na yung mga mild cases asymptomatic, they have to be isolated. Kasi if you cannot isolate them and put them in a quarantine territory, it is easy for the virus to be transmitted as fast as it can. So the doubling time might be increased. So what I'm saying is, pag mild naman and asymptomatic, and they should be quarantined at least until for 14 days, or if the PCR turns out to be negative. Pag nasa hospital, I think we'll just have to reserve this to the moderate and severe. Kasi inaagawan nila yung slot nung yung mga moderate cases. Kasi itong mga moderate cases can easily crash to become serious and severe. And we hope na, although we have seen instances that a moderate can graduate into a mild case, pag nag-mild case na yan, kailangan ita-transfer pa rin yan sa isang quarantine facility. So these are important concerns na for patients who cannot be isolated sa bahay nila, dahil walang banyo and dense ang situation wherein you also have other vulnerables there. Kailangan ma-isolate siya in a quarantine facility. It will be hard, but for the good of the public and for the good of the community, I think that will work wonders. Thank you.
All right.
Secretary
Thank you.
Vince, would you like to add anything?
Yeah, tama po si Sir Bong, ano. Pero siguro para sa mga kababayan natin, no, para mas maintindihan natin yung itong malaking problema natin ito. No. Alam niyo po, ang COVID-19 very infectious siya, no. Madali siyang talagang maipasa from person to person. Pero hindi lahat ng tatamaan o mahahawa sa COVID-19. In fact, marami sa mga tatamaan, higit na nakararami sa mga tatamaan sa COVID-19, ay magkakaroon lang ng either mild or tinatawag nilang asymptomatic. Yung asymptomatic, yung walang nararamdaman at all. No? Halimbawa, no, si Secretary Villar, no? Positive siya sa COVID-19, pero wala siyang lagnat, wala siyang sipon, wala siyang ubo. No? In fact, ang statistics natin, halos 98 to 99% ng mga nahahawa sa COVID-19 ay either mild or asymptomatic. Ngayon, yung 1% na yan, yung sinasabi ni Yusek Bong, yan yung mga moderate, severe, or critical. Yan talaga ang dapat bantayan natin. Kasi ang bottom line nitong lahat, no, para talaga ma-manage natin ang COVID-19, ang dapat talaga na tinitignan natin at binabantayan natin yung mga kababayan natin dun sa 1% na yon. Kasi in all likelihood, sila talaga yung may tsansa na mamatay dahil sa COVID-19. Yun talaga ang bottom line. Kailangan mapigilan natin o ma-minimize natin ang mga mamamatay dahil sa COVID-19. Kahit na sabihin mo pang 1% lang yan, no, Pilipino pa rin yan, kababayan pa rin natin yan, at kailangan alagaan natin sila. Ngayon, ano ang kailangan gawin ng gobyerno para ma-manage yan? Yun yung napaka-importanting ginagawa na ni Yusek Bong, ni Secretary Charlie Galvez, at ng buong team sa anti-COVID-19. No? Lalong-lalo na sa treatment, kailangan ma-manage natin yung mga kasong magiging severe at critical. At maalagaan natin silang mabuti na kahit na maging severe sila o critical sila, hindi sila mamamatay. Yun po ang napaka-importanting ginagawa ni Yusek Bong ngayon. Yung sinasabi niyang pag-manage ng mga ospital, pag-manage ng mga facilities, napaka-importante yan. Ngayon, pero kailangan din maintindihan ng mga kababayan natin, hindi lang yung gobyerno ang may responsibilidad para dito. No, kasi hindi kaya to ng gobyerno na mag-isa, hindi natin kaya o hindi namin kaya na i-manage tong problemang to na kami lang. No, at napaka-importante yung role ng bawat citizen dito. Lalong-lalo na yung dalawang bagay. Unang-una, yung pagsunod ng ating mga kababayan dun sa sinabi ni Yusek Bong na minimum health standards. Yung pagsusuot ng mask, paghuhugas ng kamay, and pagdi-distance. No, bakit? Hindi lang kasi yon para sa atin eh. Pag nagsuot tayo ng mask, pag naghugas tayo ng kamay, pag nagdi-distance tayo, hindi lang natin ginagawa yon para sa sarili natin. Ginagawa din natin yon para sa mga mahal natin sa buhay. Lalong-lalo na kung meron tayong mga loved ones na medyo may edad na, yung mga lolo-lola natin, yung may sakit, no, may yung mom or dad natin, baka may diabetes or may sakit sa puso or may kapatid tayo na may asthma, we're doing that for them and not just for us, no? And second, kailangan protektahan natin yung mga vulnerable Filipinos. Sino ba yung mga vulnerable Filipinos, no? Yung may edad na, yung may mga underlying na sakit, at yung mga buntis, no? Vulnerable din sila, no? So, we really have to do our part. And together, kaya naman natin to pero kailangan sama-sama tayo, no? Na gawin to. Last na lang, Jessica, James, no?
Yes.
Nasa isang webinar kami, no? With several people from the government. And may nagsalita, no? I think it was the Public Health Minister of South Korea. And sinabi niya, na actually yung success ng South Korea, hindi natin talaga, ang number one factor dun sa success nila is really not yung tracing, testing, etc. No? Ang sabi nila, ang pinaka-biggest success factor nila ay yung disiplina na pinakita ng mga citizens ng South Korea sa pagsasagawa nung mga sinabi ni Yusek Bong kanina. Yung pagsusuot ng mask, yung pag-distance, yung paghuhugas ng kamay, and also yung ginawa nilang pagkokontrol at pag-iiwas na ma-expose yung kanilang vulnerable populations. No?
Okay.
So ano talaga to? No? We really need to work together on this. No? And that's how we beat COVID-19.
Thank you, Secretary Vince. Pero there are also studies, no, that came out showing a survey that 91% of Filipinos actually wear masks. So, what else po kaya can we do kung nasa tao din ang responsibility? It looks like based on the survey that people are following that rule.
Yeah, I think the survey asked the question, Jessica, no. They ask the question, do they wear masks or do they distance? No, but the question really is that really the case? No, is that really the case? No. Now, I'm not saying that it's not the case, but I think what we really need to do is really need to enforce it properly. no, kunyari, no, yung pagsusuot ng mask, no, pag ako umiikot, no, marami pa rin sa ating mga kababayan, no, while they do wear mask, and maybe Yusek Bong can weigh in on this, no, they don't wear it properly, no. Minsan may mga nakikita ko yung nagsusuot sila ng mask pero nakababa dito, no? Exposed pa rin ng bibig, exposed pa rin ng ilong. No, I know it's difficult, no? Pero we really, really have to do it the right way. No? And alam ko, mahirap siya. Ako, you know, kamukha ngayon ako, no? After this, magbibisikleta ako sa labas, no? Kaya mahirap magbisikleta na nagmamask, no? It's very inconvenient, mahirap huminga, pero wala tayong choice, kailangan talaga natin gawin, lalo na kung may iba kang mga kasama sa grupo, no? So we just really need to do our part, and the government, we're really going to try our best to trace, to test, to treat, to isolate, but it does not end there. We really have to we really still have to do our part as citizens, no?
Thank you, Secretary.
Okay.
Maybe
Yeah, right. Tama si
Yes.
Sec Vince. Very true. Although meron nga sa atin nagwe-wear ng mask, but if you wear it improperly, talagang ano yan, that would be a very sure way of getting the transmission. But this is what I think Sec Vince was ultimately saying, that at the bottom of this, we are really the frontliners. I mean, we should protect people from getting infected by wearing the mask, and we should be protecting ourselves from getting the disease. Because what is very important here is that although the national government or even the local government and even the private sectors will come up, and try to help out each other in terms of this pandemic, the ultimate responsibility is the individual himself. Sa kanya yun, hawak mo yun eh. This is your ought. This is what you should be responsible for in terms of how to make sure that you are not going to make this virus spread or be transmitted to another person. Kasi the virus will only succeed if you give that chance. If you give that chance to let it be transmitted. Kasi the bottom line really is, we really have to stop the transmission because we don't have the vaccine. So we need to come up with the standards of behavior, of wearing masks, of washing your hands, and keep a safe distance, so that the infectious character of this virus is not able to transmit from one person to the other. That's all. That's the very bottom line. Yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
Yusek Bong, nabanggit nyo na rin po yung vaccine and the treatment. Can you tell us more about the recent news na may posibilidad daw na lagundi ang supplementary treatment for COVID-19? Totoo po ba yun? May katotohanan po ba ito?
Well, first of all, sa vaccines, let's be hopeful, na magkakaroon ng vaccine. You know very well na ang daming infectious diseases like AIDS or even some infectious diseases that na wala pa ring vaccine. So let's be hopeful that by next year they will be able to provide a very effective and safe kind of vaccine. But in terms of sa mga lagundi and all these reports, anecdotal yan, So it means na may nagsabi lang na gumaling sila. Pero if you want that to be really studied and of benefit to everyone, that has to come up with a certain kind of research protocol na ipapadaan sa mga big institutions, and the best way to do that is a randomized clinical study. Para masabi mo on clinical grounds, this substance is really good for COVID. So if they subject that, if they subject that to a clinical study, that would be fine. Not only lagundi, but I've heard of virgin coconut oil, and my very good friend si Toby is very much wants this to happen in clinical trials para they can say na the virgin coconut oil is good for COVID.
Pero Yusek, just to be clear to the audience, sorry James, just to be clear to the audience, hindi natin ina-advise na magse-self-medicate sila if they feel like they're having symptoms of COVID. Is that
Uminom sila
correct?
ng Lola
No,
Remedios.
no, no. Not just for COVID, but any other diseases. You
Yes.
don't self-medicate, and you have to ask your
Okay.
doctor what it is, because symptoms they cross with each other. You might be suffering from dengue, and you might be thinking you're COVID. So you need to identify and make sure that you're hitting the right disease for the right medicine.
Thank you.
Ito po yung check po na nabanggit niyo po yung clinical testing. Ito raw po naaprubahan na raw sa Japan. Kakalabas lang po na balita. Ito po 10 times ko pong practice tong sabihin. Dexamethasone. Dexamethasone. Ito po ano po ba ito?
Alam mo kasi may phases kasi yung sakit ng not phases but rather there are medicines for every stages of the infection. Ang merong mga antivirals, no? Makikita mo yung mga remdesivir. Ito namang phase ng dexamethasone, ito yung inflammatory phase. Actually, ginagamit na ngayon yan as a part of the clinical study dito sa Philippines, sa dexamethasone, para ma-stop yung inflammatory response. Kasi yun ang inflammatory response ng individual against the virus. Yun ang nag-trigger ng multi-organ failures. So the dexamethasone is a steroid. Actually, and it's very cheap. It's you can have it. It's in the Philippine drug formulary. It's easy to get. It's easy to procure, and there has been already studies and even reports that it actually will stop the inflammatory nature of the COVID response. No, the immune response of the individual to COVID.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Yusek. Let's go naman to Secretary Vince. You said po na the goal is to test 10 million people by 2021.
Yeah.
Where are we? Are we on track on this target?
Yeah, confident tayo no na kaya nating abutin 'yon, no. Ang question na lang diyan, gaano kabilis nating maabot. No, and right now, ang ginagawa natin, talagang gina-ramp up natin yung ating daily testing rate, no? Right now, nasa 1.2 million plus na tayo at a rate of roughly 30,000 per day, no? Yun ang nahihit na natin ngayon. Nag-hit tayo ng 28 plus, and within this week, we will hit about 30,000 a day. No? So kung 30,000 a day, that's roughly about 1 million a month, no? So 10 months, no, para maabot another 9 months para maabot natin yung 10 million. Pero kailangan i-ramp up pa natin 'yan, no? And ang kailangan talaga nating gawin ay yung mga kababayan natin na lalo na ngayon nagbubukas na tayo ng ekonomiya, no? Slowly but surely kasi hindi na pwedeng forever lockdown tayo eh. Kailangan bumalik ng mga kababayan natin. Kayo, no, kahit mga batang-bata pa kayo, you need to start going back to work, no? And I'm sure gustong-gusto niyo na rin na bumalik sa trabaho, no? Pero kailangan habang nagbubukas tayo, kailangan mas nagiging aggressive tayo sa testing, sa tracing, sa isolation, tsaka sa treatment, no? So yan, no, maganda yung nakikita nyo ngayon, no? Yung mga drive-through testing natin sa Manila, sa Taguig, sa Quezon City, no, lahat yan part of the plan to ramp up our testing, no. Kaya napaka-importante nung tanong ni James kanina, no, yung protocol. For so long kasi yung protocol na yan limitado sa mga may simptomas lang. So kahit ako gusto ko magpa-test, hindi ako makapagpa-test, no, kasi wala akong symptom, no. Ngayon pwede na. So mga kababayan natin, kayo, you can just go to a drive-thru, you can go to a lab, you can get tested. And kung kayo ay napapaloob dun sa libre sa PhilHealth, kung kayo ay frontline, kung ikaw ay cashier sa isang grocery, kung ikaw ay nagtatrabaho sa isang retail outlet at ikaw ay salesperson, kung ikaw ay nagtatrabaho sa isang hotel, kung ikaw ay waiter sa isang restaurant, yan, pwede kang matest regularly. No? So it's part of the aggressive testing that we're now implementing dahil nga meron na tayong capacity to test more of our kababayan.
Thank you, Sec. Yusek Bong, a lot of private companies, they have also stepped up, no, in their COVID-19 response para tulungan ng gobyerno. Kumusta naman po yung pakikipagtulungan nila with the LGUs?
Malaki. I think a lot of private companies already even donated mga automated machines to some LGU hospitals and even national hospitals. They have been giving consumables and they've been giving me PPEs. Alam naman natin na when the disaster strikes in the Philippines, everybody moves around to help each other. Yeah, so many private companies I've seen, and this is my experience in Davao. A lot of the restaurants would feed even the frontliners. A lot of this, even the hardware stores would open up their stores and try to fix if need fixing in the hospital, whether it's going to be an exhaust mechanism or kailangan nyo ng plumbing or everything, they open it up. And this is true for the big companies here in Metro Manila. And I've seen this, like San Miguel has been giving up a lot of this consumables and PPEs and machines. Even Ayala Foundation came up with several donation of automated testing machines, or for the PCR test. So I can name a few, but it is very good to know that everybody's pitching in. Ito yung nakikita namin with the private sector in terms of how they are also trying to mobilize themselves to support the national government.
Yes, Sec Bong, meron pong nagtatanong dito sa comment, what about yung tuob? Gaano ka-effective po yun? Kailangan po nating ma-settle yan once and for all.
Alam mo yung tuob, I remember so well, yung bata pa ako, pag may ubo ka sipon, yung mother mo would, I don't know if you're familiar with Vicks.
Yes.
Before they put it in a parang steam inhalation. And well, it will make you feel good. I mean, kasi parang it gives comfort to your how you breathe and yung respiration mo better off kasi with the Vicks around and the steam inhalation. But ang tuob kasi it's totally different because you actually cover yourself in a blanket, no? And with the steam inhalation. Although I can't say whether it is really good for or it can really fight against COVID. What I can say is if you are say a certain morbidity like you're hypertensive or your problems in terms of your kidneys, baka ang dehydration mo might cause a certain kind of clinical kind of disadvantage to you. But overall, I think if people using tuob feels that they basically get a very good feel, kasi ganito yun, they feel good and there's some amount of secretions that they can expectorate, because usually that happens when you do stimulation. And I think that will work. But to say that whether it is really anti-COVID, it's very. I don't think I can say that on a clinical basis.
All right.
How about po yung butike? Joke lang po. Yusek Bong. Yusek Bong, yung naman po, regarding naman po sa vaccine, meron din pong lumabas na balita regarding sa development ng AstraZeneca. Makapaglabas na raw po sila by the end of 2021. Makakuha po ba tayo nun, yung Pilipinas?
Yeah, I think what we're trying to drive at, and I think what we're also working at, is kung magkaroon tayo ng vaccine, dapat we will be a part of in the manufacture of the vaccine para magkaroon ng technology transfer. Kasi I think this is very important with the vaccine production, that we also be involved in its production, so that in the long line we will also have the capacity, to have our vaccine making in this country.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Yusek. Maraming salamat sa inyong mga kasagutan. Sa lahat ng mga nagtatanong sa comment section, huwag kayong mag-alala. We will do our best na sagutin yung mga katanungan yan later on in the show, so stick around. Pero ngayon, gusto ko muna mag-proceed sa ating next segment. Ang segment na ito ay tinatawag na Did You Get the Memo? James, explain mo naman ang ating mechanics.
ito naman po ang lighter part ng ating program. So may mga
Patay kami ni Yusek Bong dito.
Iwan ko na sa Sec Beans, alis na ako.
Ako, wag po, Yusek. Okay lang naman yung mga pinili namin eh.
Pinagpapawisan na ako ng magamig. Oh.
Very friendly po yung mga memes na pinili namin. Gusto lang po namin malaman kung agree po kayo dito o disagree. Kung agree
Sige.
po kayo, ang sasabihin nyo lang po ay haha. Kapag disagree naman po kayo, ang sasabihin nyo po ay brut-brut.
Yan. Madali lang, napakadali lang po talaga, no? So, bago tayo mag-proceed, gusto ko lang mag-disclaimer na gusto ko lang i-clarify that the memes that we're about to show, they do not represent the opinion of Pinas Forward. At napili lamang namin ito, ang mga memes na ito or mga posts na ito, dahil ito yung mga sentiments ng ating netizens bilang ito yung mga nagva-viral ngayon sa social media. Hello! Hello, little Vince. Okay.
Yung daughter ko. Siya na yung papasikutin ko.
Or baka mas makaka-relate siya sa meme. Okay.
Huwag po kayo mag-alala, Yusek Bong, Sec Beans, kami po ay kinakabahan. Kinakabahan din po.
I'll say something.
Hello.
What's your name, Miss? Sec Beans, what's your name?
Natalie.
Let's
Hi, Natalie.
Hi,
Hello,
Natalie. Hi, Natalie.
A lot of people are watching you.
Okay, I will show na po the memes.
Yes,
ito ang ating
ito po
first
ang ating
meme.
first meme. Ito po ang meme natin. Ito, tinuturing kayo ng mga Pilipino na kayo daw po ay Philippine Pandemic Power Ranger.
Yes, para ito kay Secretary Vince.
Natawa si Natalie.
So, paano ulit ang rules? Anong sasabihin ko?
If you
ano po
agree,
kayo,
you say
agree
haha.
or yes. Kung disagree po kayo, you say brut brut.
Yan.
And then you comment.
Sige, brut na lang.
Okay,
Ba't naman po
would
kayo
you like to
disagree,
explain?
Sec Beans?
Hindi. Unang-una, pogi sila eh. So, kami medyo, nahaharas na kami ni Yusek Bong. So, hindi na ganyan yung itsura namin.
Okay na ba? Kailangan nyo lang daw ng costume. Okay. Our next, next is for Yusek Bong. Eto po. Sige, James.
Yusek Bong, ito naman po ang meme. Ang sabi naman daw dito ay hindi tayo aabot ng 40 cases on June 30. Kasi sa July natin ire-report yung late cases. Ano po ang reaction niyo po dito, Yusek Bong?
Nakakatawa because it has a semblance of truth.
I like you, Yusek Bong. You are very truthful.
Okay.
Good answer, Yusek Bong.
I said semblance. I didn't say
Yes,
it was the
yes,
truth.
yes.
There's a
That's the
difference.
operative term talaga dito. Okay, for the record. Next, this is for Secretary Vince naman.
Secretary
Go ahead,
Vince, ang sabi po, picture ni Trump, and we can't have any more COVID cases if we stop testing for COVID cases. Ano po ang reaction?
As testing czar po.
Hindi. Ako, brut talaga yan. Pero unfortunately, sadly, maraming ganyan mag-isip sa mundo. Sadly. And kasama na yung nandun sa meme.
Yes, well. Glad you cleared that out. Next po, finally, para kay Yusek Bong.
Yusek Bong, ito naman sabi dito, nasawi daw, ito headline na talaga ito sa GMA, sabi na, nasawi sa COVID-19 noong Mayo. Tapos Hulyo, binigyan ng Certificate of Recovery. Abay, nabuhay ulit. Yusek Bong.
Siguro, ano yan?
Totoo po.
Wow. Parang, wow. Hindi ko masabi kung brut-brut o haha. Parang, it's a discovery. Wow. Parang
Okay.
No, that's really terrible.
It's tragic. It's neither yes or no, but for me, it's really tragic for the family.
Yeah, that's terrible.
Thank you, Yusek Bong. Thank you for participating sa ating activity, guys. All right, now let's proceed to our next segment. This is the lightning round. Ito po yung part na sasagutin namin ng mga katanungan ng ating audience. So may ibang katanungan na pinadala sa atin beforehand.
Mabilisan lang po ito, no? Mabilisan lang po ito.
Yes.
So para makapag-bike na po si Secretary Vince.
Okay lang, no problem.
Pag nag-bike po kayo, wag po kayo iinom ng tubig.
Stationary bike yan.
Yung pala.
Sa labas.
Sa labas, okay.
All right, so let's
stationary
start.
bike sa labas.
Okay, let's start with our first question. Ayan, this is
Okay,
for... Go ahead, James.
For Yusek Bong, ito naman po galing kay Chonalyn Logatok, Malabanan. Buong buo. Ano kaya ang maaaring maitulong o gawin ng gobyerno upang ang mga casualties ng COVID-19 ay hindi magbayad ng mga gastos sa ospital?
Alam mo, pag ikaw COVID patient, meron naman talagang no balance billing eh. May case rates yan, and even kung nasa critical and severe ka, ang laki ng bayad ng reimbursement ng claims at reimbursement ng PhilHealth yan. So, pag COVID patients ka, ang treatment diyan especially with the claims and reimbursement, nasa case rates, no balance billing. So, sasagutin talaga ng gobyerno yan ng PhilHealth.
Okay.
Alright, maganda na klaro yon. Our next question is for Secretary Vince from Rizalito Dimasalang. Sabi, Sir Vince, di ba kayo napapagod na you're always the troubleshooter from the SEA Games to our COVID response?
Hindi naman. Una, hindi naman ako always the troubleshooter. We just do what we are asked to do. And just try to do it as best as we can. No, yung SEA Games naman talaga, we were really involved there, especially in the facilities. So ito lang sa COVID, talagang ika nga sa Navy, all hands on deck ito.
Yes.
Ako, I admire Sec Vince for doing that. Talagang grabe yung SEA Games. It was spectacular. There's a word for it, spectacular. Galing.
Thank you, Bong. Tulong-tulong lahat doon. Sama-sama lahat doon.
Ayan.
Hopefully,
our
we can have sporting events again soon. Pag wala na tayo.
Well, one can only hope. All right, next question.
Okay, next question for Yusek Bong again from Albert Lee. Are we currently working on our own vaccine? Then what are the supports that the government gives to our medical experts that looking for the vaccine? Aside from the 10 million reward po yata ito, 10 million.
Actually, may mga offers coming from different countries and even from big pharmaceuticals to work with the Philippines in terms of producing the vaccine. Ang vaccine naman kasi it will undergo parang expert panel at vaccine expert panel sa DOST. Sila yung namamahala talaga on what type of vaccines are coming in, especially for COVID. At meron naman talagang big I think parang commitment, no, ang Philippines. If ever we come up with a vaccine production, it has to be there has to be a technology transfer. Parang ganun ang natin, partnership with the vaccines that are coming in. And if we do hope that if we can have something like that, wherein they will also share their expertise in the production, and we can develop it ourselves. And of course, developing a vaccine would mean that i-develop pa rin yung FDA natin na capable of evaluating and monitoring and making sure that the vaccines are safe and effective. So ito yung ito yung proposal na if ever there is, let's do it together and produce it here. Parang ganon.
Okay. Thank you. Ayan, for our next question, from Pau Pangan, Sir Vince, is there a chance for government to sponsor testing for probable asymptomatics?
Okay. Ganito, no? Pag sinabi mo kasing probable asymptomatic, ibig sabihin nun, either na contact trace ka ng iyong LGU or meron kang close contact with some, let's say in an office, no? And under those two circumstances, kunyari, you went back to work, there was a positive person in your workplace, and you were there also, then you are considered a probable based on that. And under the new guidelines, libre na yung test mo.
Okay.
So, yung sinasabi niya, actually sa new guidelines, covered na yan.
All right.
Covered na
Pero
siya.
you need to be kailangan within those premises po, in that premise. So
Yes.
ibig sabihin, if you just stayed home but you're feeling a little sickly, wala ka namang contact sa outside world?
Hindi. Pagka may symptoms ka,
Right.
ano ka, covered ka.
Okay.
Kunyari,
Okay,
may, may lagnat ka or may ano ka,
Yes.
pwede ka magpa-test. You can just go. It will be covered by PhilHealth.
Okay. Thank you. Our next question.
Next question.
Yes.
Yes,
Yan.
for Yusek Bong again from Myra Gahid. What are the programs that DOH will provide to benefit our frontliners, considering that confirmed COVID cases are increasing every day?
Well, first of all, yung mga frontliners natin, they're the heroes of the day, no? Talagang they serve our country well. Even myself, we are all frontliners. Sec Vince is also a frontliner. He goes from place to place. And I think one of the things that will increase the confidence of a frontliner is you get to test them regularly. Kailangan yung mga nurses natin, yung mga doctors natin, they should be tested almost regularly kasi it's very bad if they are positive and they transmit that to the family. So we need to make sure and give them assurance that they get to be real tested. The second is we need to provide them support in terms of PPEs. No, although may mga frontliners na nasa low risk area wherein wala masyadong contamination with positive COVID, pero may mga areas naman like the ER, yung mga operating rooms like intensive care units, the isolation rooms, they should be supported by mga PPEs talaga, which is really the PPEs which is appropriate for the high risk areas. So, and the third, of course, is government is always giving out benefits for those frontliners who have fallen ill or have died, no? And it's clear because the Department of Health already has given some benefits for those the frontliners who actually succumbed to COVID-19. And a very good another example is this is an experience based in Davao. The mayor actually gives out about a certain amount, no, for all frontliners, about close to about 50,000 to all the frontliners. So following this, government also get these benefits for them. So I'd just like to say that yung mga frontliners talaga, they're serving our country well, they're serving our patients well, and they deserve much more than this.
Thank you, Yusek.
Yeah, thank you, Yusek Bong. And
All right.
next question, meron pa ba tayong question?
Yes, meron pa tayong next question. Saan daw si Mayor?
Sa May Caballero, nasaan po si Mayor?
Mukhang
busy.
Parang
Nag-overtime si Mayor, nag-overtime.
Pasensya na sa mga taga Baguio kasi kailangan nyo ngayon i-share si Mayor Benji sa buong Pilipinas.
Oo nga. And the rest of the country is very thankful.
Napakagaling ni Mayor Benji talaga.
Yes.
Baka magtatanong po kung may pasok bukas o wala eh. Kasi ganyan pag nagtitrending si Mayor eh. Alright, next question. Ito ay galing naman for Yusek Bong again, galing kay Rhea Liza Magnaye. Mga LSI ang isa sa mga matataas na bilang ng bagong positibo. Ano ang susunod na hakbang matapos silang pauwi sa kani-kanilang probinsya?
Tama yan kasi ito yung mga LSI, ito yung nagbibigay ng positive cases, especially kung umuwi sila. And ang ano ngayon, ang protocol is pag may LSI na pauwi, so kung saan sila nanggaling, pagdating nila sa place where they arrive, dapat may PCR test sila. Kung wala namang PCR test, ang isang locality, kailangan i-quarantine sila for 40 days to be safe. So ang best really way of doing it is testing, kung meron ba sila on arrival, or kung wala namang capacity for testing in locality, kailangan i-quarantine for 40 days. And then of course, they'll have to stay there for 40 days. Kung may PCR naman sila and then negative siya, kasi ang results yan after 3 days, then he can be released after 3 days. So that's the best way to really to stop the transmission of COVID through the LSI.
Okay.
Thank you, Yusek. Next question. Ayan. This is from JM Avelino. Ano po ang plan ng gobyerno in the next 3 weeks? Kasi until now, wala pa daw concrete plan. Secretary Vince, I wonder if you can answer this question.
Sige, hindi naman JM, no? Hindi naman walang plano. I think very clear naman yung plano, no? Unang-una, ang plano natin talaga ay kailangan mag-test at mag-trace tayo ng mas aggressive. Alam mo, aaminin ko, no, sa lahat ng mga nakikinig sa atin ngayon, no, nung unang mga buwan, nung Feb, nung March, nung April, no, talagang may mga pagkukulang tayo. No, may mga, and yung mga pagkukulang natin, kailangan maintindihan ng mga kababayan natin, gaya ng sinabi ni Yusek Bong kanina, bagong-bago itong virus na to eh. Wala talagang bansang talagang may formula para dito eh, no? May mga bansa na na control nila ng maigi, no? And that's really a credit to them, and we really have to follow their lead, no? And we really have to learn from those countries like Vietnam, South Korea, Taiwan, no? These are countries that really manage the virus very well, no? And aminado tayo, no, na meron tayong mga pagkukulang nung una. Pero ngayon, gaya ng sinasabi ni Yusek Bong, sinasabi ni Sec Charlie Galvez, slowly but surely umaabot tayo doon, no? Yung testing natin, mas malaki na ang capacity natin ngayon. Ang tracing natin with the help of Mayor Benji, kailangan nating kailangan talaga nating i-ramp up yan at maging mas aggressive tayo, no? Kung nandito si Mayor Benji, I'm sure he will tell all of us, no? Napakalaking kulang natin sa tracing, no? Sabi nga ni Mayor Benji, no, sa lahat ng mga mayors na kausap natin, no? Namin in the past days, no? Dapat 1:37. Yun ang magic, I want to call it the Magalong formula, no? For every positive case, 37 dapat na tao ang natitrace natin. At yung 37 na yon, dapat natitest natin yon. At yung mga magpopositibo sa kanila, kailangan i-isolate natin, no? And then, para dun sa mga malubha na magkakasakit, kailangan iti-treat natin sila para maiwasan na at ma-minimize natin yung mga masasawi dahil sa COVID-19. So that is the plan, no? To test, to trace, to isolate, and to treat. But like we said, napaulit-ulit namin sasabihin to, kahit na may mga iba na misconstrue at binibigyan ng maling pag-iintindi itong sinasabi namin na paulit-ulit. Hindi lang testing, tracing, isolation at treatment ang kailangan natin gawin. Napaka-importante din na yung individual responsibility, yung individual discipline, napakalaking role niyan dito sa laban natin. At hindi kaya ng gobyerno yun. Kailangan tayo as individual citizens, kailangan we have to do our part, no? Some people may say na hindi, yung gobyerno siguro inaan nyo lang yan, sinasabi nyo lang dahil hindi nyo magawa yung dapat nyo gawin. Hindi po, no? Sinasabi natin, importanteng mag-test, mag-trace, mag-isolate, mag-treat, pero sinasabi din natin na importante din yung individual responsibilities natin as citizens, no? Kagaya din ng mga bansang, kung titignan mo yung mga bansa, no, na successfully na-manage ito, Japan, South Korea, Taiwan, Vietnam, there's actually one very, very common denominator between those 4 countries, no? And that is really very strong culture of discipline, no? hindi ko sinasabi yon para sabihin na yung gobyerno wala nang gagawin. Hindi, gagawin pa rin ng gobyerno yung dapat niyang gawin. Pero napaka-importante pa rin nun. No? I don't know, maybe that my statement again might be a topic of a meme later on. But I have to say it to everyone.
For next episode daw po.
Maybe Yusek Bong can say more about that.
Yes, Yusek. Or Vince, I think, has a question. James, sorry, has a question.
Sorry.
Okay ka lang, James.
Kasi po may ipis dito.
Ako, bigla din. Bigla po sa iyan, James.
Anyway po, ito po, Yusek Bong, last question po. May tanong din po kami. Marami pong nagtatanong kasi regarding dun sa na-flatten na daw ba yung curve? Ano daw po ba ang status ng curve? Is it bent? Curve?
Kung tinutukoy niyo ang epidemiological curve, talagang tumataas. You see the number is really rising. We're about mga 70,000 ngayon. At saka yung positivity rate natin nasa mga 12%. So in other words, marami tayong nahuhuli ngayon na talagang in spite of the increase in testing, tumataas pa rin yung mga positive rates na. So we are looking at this parang epidemiological curve na nag-i-increase. Hindi pa na-flatten or anything. There's actually nakikita ko diyan yung peaks and valleys eh. Wala akong nakikitang curve eh. It's a peak and then it valleys and then it peaks again, So it's really although we're really trying to manage this na talagang hindi na mag-peak na mag-peak. So I hope na if there's a valley that comes again, it goes down to another valley. That's what we hope. That gradually it will go down because of our interventions. No, like Sec Vince was doing. They are very aggressive now on testing. Sila Sec Vince in the group, because this is the only way. Aggressive na rin tayo sa isolation and contact tracing, and we're also aggressive in treatment. So we hope that with these interventions, as aggressive as we can do, we will slowly see the valley more rather than the peaks. Thank you.
Thank you, Yusek. All right, and finally, yes, James.
Ito ang ating last question for tonight. Pero bago po yan, maraming salamat po sa pagsama po sa amin dito. Alam po namin napaka-busy ninyo at napaka-busy. Katulad nga, sample na si Mayor Magalong. Pero ito po, last question natin for tonight. Sorry.
Galing ito, okay lang? Padala ito sa atin ni Jumar Monden. Ayan, maraming salamat, Jumar, for your question. Sige, James.
Opo. Update lang po, napatay na po yung ipis.
Okay. Narinig namin lahat ng pagpatay ng ipis.
Opo, ito po, ano po ba ang priority ng gobyerno? Is it the economy or the COVID-19 fight? Yusek Bong?
Alam mo, everything has to be in a balance. In other words, ibig sabihin noon that if you try to free the economy, which is really our priority, kasi hindi naman natin pwedeng isra for the longest time, because our GNP would go down, there would be less production, less economic activity. Ayaw natin mangyari yun. But at the same time, we have a virus that's still very highly infectious and very easy to transmit. So what we do is you have to create a balance and precautions wherein if you try to open up the economy, gradually you will be able to safeguard health. Hindi yung basta bubuksan mo na lang lahat, and make nobody is conscious anymore of the minimum health standards. So in other words, it needs a real balance in terms of opening up the economy slowly, making sure also on the other end we will do the yung safe standards for and safeguarding health in the long run. So yun, pag nakuha natin yung balance, gradually it will move towards more economic activity, and then and lesser and I'm sure a very precise kind of safeguard in health. Then we achieve that, and we gradually move on, and this can be the new normal after all. This balancing act of safeguarding health and opening up the economy.
Thank you, Yusek. Secretary Vince.
Absolutely agree with Yusek Bong. Tama po yung lahat ng sinabi niya. Ang idadagdag ko lang doon is pagka binuksan natin yung ekonomiya, ang mas malaki ang nagiging responsibilidad ngayon ng mga LGU, no? Napakalaki yan. Kasi habang nagbubukas ka ng ekonomiya, marami ng tao sa kalye, marami ng tao sa mga palengke, sa mga mall, etc. Kailangan ma-enforce ng mabuti yung ating health standards, no? Malaki din ang nagiging responsibilidad ngayon ng mga private companies, no? Because private companies need to now enforce these new standards, these new behavioral standards sa kanilang mga empleyado. At kailangan mabilis din silang umaksyon kapag merong kapag merong kasong na develop sa mga workplaces, no? Kailangan mabilis ang aksyon. And finally, mas malaki din ang nagiging responsibilidad ngayon ng individual citizen, no? Na paulit-ulit nating sinasabi. So, and hindi na natin pwedeng isara ang ekonomiya. Kailangan buksan na natin. Kasi kung hindi natin bubuksan, hindi tayo sa COVID mamamatay. Mamamatay tayo sa gutom, mamamatay tayo dahil ang mga kababayan natin na may sakit na liban sa COVID, sila naman ang maapektuhan nito, no? So we really have to slowly but surely open up the economy, but the responsibility now expands more for local governments, for individual companies, and also for you and me, no, for all of us, no, as citizens of the country. We have to do our part.
Thank
Well
you,
said.
Secretary Vince.
Well said, Vince.
At dyan nagtatapos. Yes, you gonna
Pero
answer?
meme naman yan, sigurado, meme.
Kami na po gagawa mismo ng
Okay
meme.
na, no problem. hindi kami affected ni Yusek Bong.
Yeah. Pero joke lang yun, Secretary Vince. Yes,
No problem.
Alright, at dyan, unfortunately, nagtatapos ang ating show ngayong gabi. James, ang bilis ng oras.
Oo nga po, ang bilis nga po ng oras. Pero alam mo yung kanina yung sa meme, nagdi-disagree ako doon kay Secretary Vince na sinabi niyang disagree siya doon sa Power Rangers. Kasi ako agree. Feeling ko talaga, kasi dito sa napakalaking kalaban natin, kailangan hindi natin kailangan ng isang superhero lang eh. Kailangan magtulong-tulong yung bawat isa na merong mga iba't ibang abilities. So parang, tsaka ang ganda rin ng sinabi kanina ni Secretary Vince na individually responsible na tayo lahat. Di ba sa Power Rangers, kung sino pa yung mga sigaw na tao, sino pa yung unang natatapakan ng monster. So di ba? Parang kailangan responsible tayo lahat. Kaya yun lang po. Maraming salamat po again. Yusek Bong and Secretary Vince at sa paglalaan ng inyong oras. Napaka-busy niyo po pero nakapagbigay pa rin po kayo ng information dito sa aming programa.
Yes, thank you so much. Thank you so much to our guests. Yes, at maraming salamat din sa inyo na mga nanood sa amin ngayong gabi habang patuloy nating pinagsisikapan ng pagbibigay wakas sa ating krisis na kinakaharap natin ngayon. Huwag sana nating kalimutan na tayo'y malayo pa sa ating kampanya kontra COVID. At bagamat responsibilidad ng gobyerno ang pagbibigay halaga sa ating health and safety, naway huwag nating malimutan na ang ating kalusugan ay sarili rin nating responsibilidad. Pag sumikapan nating makipagtulungan sa public and private sectors upang mas gawing efficient at effective ang ating kampanya. Because remember, this is a shared responsibility, katulad ng paulit-ulit nating narinig sa show natin ngayong gabi. At dahil karamihan sa atin ay patuloy na ring nananatili sa lockdown, we can lend our fair share of help sa pamamagitan ng pagmamaximize ng ating digital connectivity, sa pamamagitan ng pag-share ng relevant at reliable information online. Ilabas ang digitalino, mga ka-PF, by using our tech for good towards our dream of having a responsible digination. And let's move our Pinas forward. Ayan. Maraming salamat sa ating mga guests once again. Maraming salamat, James, for being my co-host this evening. Kung may mga topics, issues, or subjects kayo na gusto nyo pag-usapan, please feel free to comment them down below. At kung gusto nyo ituloy ang ating usapan, kung nabitin kayo ngayong gabi, pwede nating ituloy yan sa aming Facebook group. Yes, hanapin nyo lang ang Online Crashtalkan Community. Magkita-kita tayo doon. At doon tayo magkwentuhan. At huwag kalimutan i-like din at i-follow ang aming Facebook page, Pinas Forward PH. Nasa Instagram, Twitter, at YouTube na rin tayo. So, like and follow everybody. Once again, my name is Cheska. We'll see you in our next episode. Goodbye!
Bye-bye!
Bye. Thank you.